I'm going to read just a little bit from the beginning, the kind of opening statement that Erik is making. It's really, in some ways, the book is also just, I consider it kind of a sort of frustrated love letter. He's trying to explain to his wife, his estranged wife, many things. One is where he has been with their daughter, Meadow, a 6-year-old girl, that he's gone on a road trip with without permission. They're separated, and he's taken the girl on a trip to the New England. It's supposed to be fun and is for a large part of it, but also kind of, the root of his frustration is how much he did love them both, and how he regrets the way that his lie, which was innocent at the time, has taken them away from him. So I'll read the beginning, and I'll skip to sort of the end, actually, which I've never done, but why not? And where he's just remembering the origins of the love and when things were better. What follows is a record of where Meadow and I have been since our disappearance. My lawyer says I should tell the whole story, where we went, what we did, who we met, etc. As you know, Laura, I'm not a reticent person. I'm talkative, you could even say chatty for a man. But I haven't spoken a word for days. It's a vow I've taken. My mouth tastes old and damp, like a cave. It turns out I'm not very good at being silent. There are castles of things I want to tell you, which might explain the enthusiasm of this document, despite what you could call its sad story. My lawyer also says that this document could someday help me in court. So it's hard not to think of this as a sort of plea, not just for your mercy, but also for that of a theoretical jury should we go to trial. And in case the word jury sounds exciting to you, it did to me for a second. I've since learned that a jury gets all kinds of things wrong, cleaving as it does to initial impressions, and in the end rarely offers the ringing exonerations or punishments that we deserve. It's hard not to think about them anyway, my potential listeners, lawyers, juries, fairy tale mobs, historians, but most of all, you, my whip, my nation, my wife. Dear Laura, if it were just the two of us again, sitting together at the kitchen table late at night, I would probably just call this document an apology. In the first trimester of your pregnancy, all you wanted was nectarines, nectarines, nectarines. In your third, you developed a taste for lousy movies from the 1980s starring B-list actors like Kurt Russell. As soon as you became pregnant, your entire personality changed. Your eyes lost their defiance, your voice its snip. I loved pregnant you. Pregnant you was, despite her poor taste, a slower, more lovable creature. Your fatigue made you cuddly. Your bulk made you quick to accept help. Out from under the glare of your own cerebral self-scrutiny, you became downright friendly. And for once, it was I who had to wait for you, as you lingered in conversation with cashiers, gas station attendants, as the blue rope of a frozen Slurpee spiraled into your 22-ounce cup. And so it was early on in your pregnancy that I understood the neutralizing effect this change was to have on you. You had been zapped by that great normalizer, parenthood. We are all of us, bodies. None of us gets to not have one. We all enter life in the same way, and we all leave by dying. Maybe your pregnant body forced you to see that you were just like everyone else when it came down to it. You had always wanted to belong. Maybe this wanting to belong was one reason we spent most of your final trimester watching the local baseball team from the bleachers of their tiny stadium. For a while, I enjoyed my own role as your elbow holder, teller of jokes, fetcher of French fries. But as the summer wore on and you did not stop attending the games, I had to admit I became confused. I don't like baseball, and you knew that. The sport makes me antsy with its suspicious lack of action, surrounded by tense silence, the occasional foul ball concussing someone in the bleachers. But you Was that really you beside me, cheering for the players by name? When I tried to get out of it, you insisted I come. You got nervous without me, you said. You felt vulnerable by yourself and pregnant. Besides, you loved my company, my tall tales, my jokes, my store of factoids, my talent for funny accents. And so I kept going with you, but suspiciously. Had you detected something in me, some foreign strain? I was so careful about my accent, careful about my Germanness. For 30 years I'd practiced, but maybe I'd missed something obvious, something hidden in plain sight. I used to look around the stands at the bristle-headed American men and wonder apprehensively if I was supposed to be more like them, if it was really what you wanted, and if I could do it. What was so unacceptable about the way I was? I thought I was doing pretty well. I was doing well at work. Granted, it was a bull market. I was selling houses as fast as I represented them. Just little ranches and bungalows, but it was adding up. People seemed to like me. Long before energy conservation was a trendy cause célèbre, I had a teacherly way of getting clients to think about the potential efficiencies. Simultaneously, I stirred within them a collector's sense of priority. Look at that leaded window, I would say. Look at that forgotten hayloft. Come see this yellowed lithograph of a beautiful dead woman I found in the attic. Plus, I was young and handsome-ish, conventional, clean of shirt. My hair had darkened with age, but was still a dark blonde, almost iron blonde at the roots. In my sky-blue chamois shirt, my Wellingtons, my name stenciled on the side of a clean car. Above the reputable name of Klebus and Company, I was a member of the community. But sometimes in the middle of a baseball game, sitting there with my paper cone of French fries, smiling at all the potential clients, I felt dread. What had we done? Why not just go on, you and I in winter mornings, and the newspaper, and talking and not talking, and poetry, and the absent-minded overwatering of flowers? Why didn't we have the guts to grow old that way? Why have a child? Why try to take that summit? But we were already too far along. That is, you were too far along. 8 months pregnant, you were a beautiful bell jar shielding your sweet. You were a snake that had fallen in love with what it had swallowed. Leaning back in the bleachers, elbows squared, you looked out over your own horizon. Your t-shirt barely up to the task at hand, one strip of skin visible above the hem of your elastic shorts. At various points in the game, you'd scream, "Go, go, go, go!" And your enthusiasm almost made me feel better. You, this graceful vision of life, screaming at people who couldn't even hear you. I tried to relax and enjoy the conclusion of your pregnancy, but in the end, my fear of fatherhood was only a heightened version of any other man's. The presentiments in general are true. You will fall in love with the thing that is out to get you. Go, 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 go. You know who you are. That youngish man thrown into the unknown when, suddenly, one innocent night, it comes. The visitor comes. To the hospital. Gather your things, your overnight bag. Turn off the lights. Don't dally. You dash to the door only to realize you've forgotten your wife, that mystic bent over and moaning in the kitchen. She refuses to move, but she must move. Give her a second. She is shaking. Is this normal? No, it is not normal at all, but somehow the telephone has been covered with butter and cannot be gripped, and therefore the hospital cannot be consulted and the ambulance cannot be summoned. Far better to unbend the woman and force her into the car. Far faster than waiting for an ambulance. But is she, like the potential paralytic, not to be moved? Might her standing break the baby? Several awkward moments pass as your wife gazes at the linoleum. Her expression is that of a toreador who has just been gored. Can she speak? No. Is this normal? Information sighs out of your head like air from a tire. All you can think of to say is, I loved you. And by this you mean, I tried as best as I could, but now I see you're going to die, and it's my fault. And I just want to set the record straight that I did indeed love you. I wasn't trying to kill you. This comment finally brings consciousness into the eye of the woman in labor. "What did you say?" she said. "You loved me?" "I said, I love you," you cry, pulling her arm over your shoulder and dragging her out the door. "I love you. I'm sorry I did this to you." "You didn't do this to me, you silly," laughs your wife. Her contraction must have passed. She is now leaning voluptuously against you, as if there's all the time in the world. Labor is making her daffy. Her forehead shines with sweat in the streetlight below your apartment. You fight with your keys. "We did this to us," she clarifies. "And P.S., I love you too. I'm so glad you came into my life. Do you know that?" "Sometimes I know that," you say. "I am," she says, "so glad. I love you quietly all day long. I've always been," she searches for the word, "sort of buttoned down. I can be a real wet blanket, I know that. But when I'm around you, I feel loose. Life feels good and light and swingy. I feel inspired. That's what I feel when I'm with you." You glance at her, your heart thundering. You believe her. You wish you could stop and make her say it again into a recording device. But you know you probably only have a moment or two before you lose her to another contraction, and you need to keep her moving. You need to keep her focused, because despite all the useful exercises they taught you in prenatal classes at the community center, none of them were how to deliver your own child in the backseat of your car using only a bottle opener, a flashlight, and a map of the Bronx Zoo. "Madame," you say, and open the rear door. She sits in the hospital for hours, washed and waiting on a bed in the upright position, occasionally saying, "Well, that's the first time I haven't had to wait for hours in the ER." The night is a rhythm of her anguished screaming, followed by light, casual conversation. In between, you eat ice chips together. Nurses come in and out, and tectonic plates shift and stars die, and finally the OB comes in and says, "Let's induce." So the induction begins and the contractions happen faster, but alas, no change has been made to the cliff face of the woman's cervical opening. Deadlines have now been set, and all sorts of medical fine print has been printed, and suddenly the two of you are the honored guests at a medical emergency. You, the father, are given a pair of blue scrubs and thrust into what looks like a broom closet, while your wife is wheeled away toward the operating room, followed by a tall anesthesiologist who turns out, in a funny twist of fate, to be German. But you're just glad it's not you who has to operate. When they gave you the scrubs, you wondered. You just have to hurry the hell up and change and find the operating room, and in the devastating moments in which you're apart from her, changing, you realize that you never want to lose this woman. The two of you are now connected by some kind of experiential sinew, stronger than any cord, any cable, stronger than anything a man could make. She is lying in the light, literally crucified, wrists tied to a T-shaped table. When you arrive and sit in the chair they've placed at her head, and you dry her cheeks because she's crying, and you reassure her. You say, "It's okay." You say, "I'm right here." And when they cut open her belly, you don't even look at her belly, because you're not talking to her body anymore. You're not talking to her body, no. Because a room is created by every love at its apex, and you're talking to her soul in that distant room. It's a room you've never been to before, and a room you may never get to again. You're not really even supposed to know it exists. In the end, you have never felt this close to anyone in your whole life. You say to yourself, "I'll never forget this. I'll never betray this. I will live my life to the standard of this. And even if I fall short, I will never give up my commitment to believe in and live by this." But you don't. That is, you do forget. You become complacent. And one summer evening, several years later, while standing on the hill above the College of St. Rose in the middle of a pickup soccer game, you look out over the balsam green river valley and you wonder, yes, but what was that other thing? What was that dream I was supposed to remember? You're late to get home, but you figure no one will mind if you finish out the half. And right before you jog back onto the field, you observe with perfect sang-froid that you can't even locate what you've forgotten in a category of forgetting. Just like that, you let go of it. You liked the feeling of love, but you weren't interested in the work, so you let go of it. You gave it up because it would have been difficult. You liked it only when it was good. when it made you look good. When it asked more of you, you demurred. In fact, you pretended that no request had been made. You forgot that you owed them the effort of love. You hoped they would eventually forget, too. You hoped they would forget you and forget themselves and go on worshipfully pretending. It took her years to figure out, and then she did, somehow. But your understanding lagged behind. You never imagined anything beyond the conquering. And these are the regrets that dog you now, with all this time on your hands. So much time. Thank you.